Well, deltas are very special, but we're losing them. And we're losing them mainly for two reasons. One, they're not getting enough sediments coming down the river. So deltas are built from sediment that flows down the rivers through the landscapes to build them up. And the second is that we're seeing sea level rises. So we're seeing the water come up through the deltas into what is already sinking and shrinking, and that salt water is then affecting a lot of the livelihoods, the agriculture, the farming, but also people, fresh water and things. So this double whammy that we're seeing in delta areas is really impacting species, whether they be fish or they be wildlife. It's also impacting people because we have a number of big megacities and big farming areas in these very productive landscapes. And so you're seeing that big cost to both nature and people in deltas, and it'll only increase as we see climate change becoming worse and more erratic weather patterns, higher sea levels, glaciers melting, and all of the other phenomena that we're already seeing coming up.
And we've seen over the last 20 or 30 years the impact that cyclones and nature has had on vulnerable people and economies. But it's also shining a light on the fact that the decisions we've been making upstream on rivers for a very, very long time are starting to really come under focus because of climate.
We still treat deltas as objects that we can use, spaces that we can occupy, for instance, the wetlands, the mangrove areas, the traditional water storage areas. It's also related to a desire to control the delta and a desire to divide the delta. We divide water and land by building dikes. We divide agricultural areas from natural areas. And all these divisions, they create a fragmented delta that is very difficult to manage sustainably.
We tried to get businesses and financial institutions to start embedding water and climate risks into their operations because these aspects are clearly financially material, and governments can't solve all of these issues by themselves. They need private capital to do this. I think we all need to become a lot more realistic about where the world is heading, unfortunately, because we are currently heading to a world of 3 to 4 degrees of global warming, but we're not planning for it. We are all hoping that we will end up at 1.5 to 2 degrees, and it's not. That's not where we're going right now. So we need to start building adaptation plans that are going to be able to deal with this much worse climate in the future. And when I say the future, I don't mean 2100. It's already happening, and it's going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's not very far away.
If you want to solve sinking and shrinking deltas, it's very important to not just look at one of the aspects, but to look at the full system. And this means that you should actually look into a 4D system. And with this, I mean you have to look in not only the surface and upstream, downstream, but also inside the delta itself and into the subsurface. So also addressing land subsidence and groundwater issues. And then the 4D is time. So dominant changes that occur in deltas, they also change over time. So what is happening right now will be different than what happens in 5 years from now.
We see that now the time for scaling up. We've been doing the work for the last 15 years, and we see now is the right time that people need work together. One organization, one sector cannot solve the problems. So we need to be open. We need to learn the new skill, how to work with others, how to do our best, but how to respect other work.
I wish there was a silver bullet, but there isn't, and I think we need to look at a systemic issue with a systemic solution around it. I just wanted to say that these need partnerships. Because these are systemic solutions and because we need to address all these different challenges, we need all the people in the room. And that's why this event of bringing together governments, NGOs, civil society partners, academics, experts, local communities, all together so that we can look at those solutions and implement them where they matter most with the people who are actually on the ground living there day to day.
It's crucial to connect to people from that can cover all these disciplines, because you cannot do it by yourself. You really need each other to solve this issue.
There's such a need for transformation of those cities and those deltas in order for the future generation to be able to live there and to live off its lands and to feed themselves. Again, in the Mekong Delta, we have working with the ICUN and with WWF. You see now the first fruits of the work switch to sustainable agriculture, for example, not using any more groundwater, giving way for mangroves and nature. So that's a model that can be scaled. And once it's adopted and believed in by locals, the step towards upscaling is quite small.
I see that now our work is so great, but we see that this is not enough. We need to learn from science. We need to learn from academic. We need to see how other deltas doing the best practice so that we don't start from zero.
I think if we were just here to talk about this, it wouldn't be good enough. But I think what we're trying to do is build a coalition of the willing. I think gathering the momentum out of New York and the new pledges on climate, the doubling of donor money into climate funds, the focus on nature-based solutions, just the growing awareness across the region on the impacts of natural disasters. There's a moment that we need to capture, and these conferences are important to build coalitions, trust, understanding, learn from each other, and move forward.
So the way to get to sustainable development is the way to alter our approach to the delta and see the delta as a living body that we treat with dignity.